Do, do. Weird. Weird, weird, weird. All right. TikTok, go to YouTube, same username. Go to YouTube, get off TikTok. Come on, you better than that. This would be some silly music if you heard this walking into a regular church. Just gotta say. I kind of like it. That's the thing. I agree entirely. The problem is, anytime I try to put something better on, YouTube takes it away. They tell me I need to cut it out or take the video down, or they require sharing. And not into it. Not into it. They make it really hard now to play music. Even royalty-free, quote-unquote, music, it's not. It's not. They require revenue sharing. And considering we make like $3 tops on a stream, I'm not trying to have them take 50% of $3. I could use the $3. So I'm gonna hang on to it, and you guys are gonna be stuck with the elevator music. I hope everybody's okay with that. Because that is where we are. With the obligatory countdown till the service starts. Yep. Just be happy I don't play like very emotionally drawing music. And then I tell you guys like, hey, you know, the Lord wants you to give me money. He told me so. He told me. That's what he tells me. That's what God tells me. He says, y'all need to give me money. So we're going to pass around the electronic plate now that you're in a very emotional state. And just be happy I don't do that, you know? Enjoy the elevator music. Enjoy the elevator music. We'll wait a few minutes, kind of like normal. We got 4 people here right now, 8 people here right now. We'll wait probably 2 more minutes and then we'll get rolling slowly. I got an elderly dad. I'm used to this kind of music. Very nice. Very nice. Does he listen to just like elevator music? Just instrumental elevator music? What I want to do, honestly, is I want to find somebody who like who makes their own stuff, you know, in Pro Tools or what is it, Logic, any of those like, you know, producer programs. I need to find somebody to just make me like an hour and a half long, nice electronic track that we can just play behind. Maybe like 4 of them, and then we'll recycle them through. That'd be great. That'd be great. Because then obviously there's no copyright, and it can be something a little more or a little less elevator-esque. That's the long-term plan. I gotta find me somebody, an aspiring rapper who's willing to make me a couple of instrumental tracks, you know? Let's give him some praise today, but really give me applause on stage. Exactly. That's exactly it. That was very well said. Very well said. Says every worship team ever. Let's give him some praise today. But really, those claps are for them. Makes them feel real good. Oh my God, the prayer, Beanie Baby unlocked the childhood memory. Yeah, I got 2 of them. We were at Volo, which is like a car museum, and we found another one. So the kiddo made me buy it. She made me get that one in the middle too, the little German Shepherd, which is pretty sweet. Is the music too loud or is the music good? You guys let me know. Before I start talking a whole bunch again, and then later you guys let me know, and then I feel like a real jerk. You literally did for a long time, like I've recognized music from elevators from my childhood. That's beautiful. That's hilarious. All right. We'll wait another minute and then we'll just get going. So Yeah. Yeah. Pecan was my first Beanie Baby and holds a lot of sentimental value, even though the nose got bit off by my dog. Very nice. I have a whole box of Beanie Babies from my childhood. Like a whole bunch. Rumbly Tumbly. That's a fantastic name. I like you already. I'm so glad you're here. Just because every time I look at your name, I'm going to internally giggle. This can make me happy. So I appreciate that. That's very good. All right, while we give it another minute, see all the stragglers. Real quick, obviously we're now always streaming to YouTube. If you choose to come on and speak, please keep in mind that this is live, this is not recorded. So avoid stating names, places, any specific terms or details in your share. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, you guys need to hop into Discord. If you get in Discord, what we can do is I can bring you on to talk verbally. Whether you're on a cell phone, on a laptop, whatever, you will be able to come on and speak. We're going to save that for the end of the stream. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give a quick spiel on the topic that we're talking about today. Today we are talking about LGBTQ Christianity. So the entire movement, the culture of the LGBTQ. We're going to be looking at it from a Christian perspective, specifically in how much, if any, of that cultural movement should be brought into the church. So how much of that lifestyle, that culture, how much of that is cohesive with a Christian environment or the Christian culture? Because what are we seeing? We're seeing in a lot of places, specific denominations for now, but I'll show you tonight that it's moving past those few denominations. We're seeing the LGBTQ culture shift into the church. We're seeing gay, lesbian, trans pastors, reverends, professors in seminary. We're seeing these things begin to blend culturally, the Christian culture and the LGBTQ culture. So what we're going to be talking about tonight is, should they blend? If they should, what does that look like? And then really just discussing that. I know we'll have at least one person coming on to talk. That's Katie, you see there in the chat. There's a link to the Discord. If you hop in Discord and you come down to channel list, flip down until you see a red dot, that is our streams and events tab. From there, you can join this voice room. Stay muted. If you unmute yourself, I will boot you. So stay muted. And then once we go to bring people on to talk, you can let us know you want to speak in the YouTube chat. And then once it's your turn, we will unmute you and your voice will come through to the stream. So you have the opportunity to speak. Like I said, though, that will be at the end. That'll be at the end. So hang out here on YouTube for now. And then once we get there, we can, I'll tell you guys again what we're doing and how we get there and everything like that once we're at that point. But that's how that's going to work. So first things first, quick overview of kind of why we're talking about this, what we're talking about beyond what I've already said, is we are seeing the blending of the cultures, right? We're seeing JWP. JWP, who are you? Do I just not recognize you? Are you in Discord already? Or do I not know you? Great to meet you if I don't know you. But we're seeing the blending of cultures. Okay, we've obviously within the past 5 years, but it's been happening before that. We've seen this trans ideology, this LGBTQ movement really pick up steam, right? And so 10, 15 years ago, it was really just a homosexual movement. And really what they were gunning for was right to marriage, right? That's what they wanted. Beyond a civil union, they wanted the right to marry just like a heterosexual couple. On the, not to get political, but just so everybody knows what I'm talking about. On the far right, you had people who are claiming slippery slope theory. If we allow that, then this is going to happen, this is going to happen, and this is going to happen. Many of those same people are now saying that we're seeing that. And to a degree, I get where they're coming from. But at the same time, I don't necessarily believe that's what was trying to be done back when we made gay marriage legal. Anyways, fast forward, past couple years, we've seen this absolute boom in this LGBTQ culture coming mainstream. If you're involved in politics at all, or you watch the news at all, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's been front and center. It's been shoved down everybody's throat in the social media algorithms. It is heavy. It's very heavy. It's impossible to miss unless you have very, very well isolated your algorithms on social media. And I think even then, you're going to see it. But if you watch anything mainstream, or if you watch specific like political podcasts or news or anything like that, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But now, what we've seen in the past, I'd say a year heavy, the past 2-3 years, very slow bleed, is we've seen the LGBTQ culture shift into the church. And so at first, we saw that in predominantly Methodist denominations. What we started to see was there have been drag shows in Methodist churches. Then we had the right and ability to promote pastors, reverends, deacons, all who are in the LGBTQ culture. So whether that means they're trans, whether that means they're gay, they're lesbian, whatever, that was allowed, right? So 10 years ago, was anybody who was of the homosexual lifestyle, were they allowed to be a pastor, preacher, teacher, any hierarchy position within the church? No. Now that has shifted massively. Now we are seeing that. Somebody who went viral within the past 6 months was, I believe he's a doctor, Reverend Caleb James. Is it James? Reverend Caleb. If you look him up, specifically on TikTok, you'll find him. The last episode we did on the LGBTQ culture, I played a TikTok video to give just an example. And it's wild. The theology that they're pushing, the twists and turns and manipulative actions towards the scripture that they're having to do to force the inclusivity, in my opinion. Of course, everything I say is my opinion. I'm not telling you facts at the moment. I'm telling you my opinion, is that they've really done exegetical gymnastics to try to force and push this inclusion of the LGBTQ culture within the Christian culture. Obviously, there's a lot of pushback, but at the same time, there's a lot of acceptance. So the thing that I want to focus on tonight is that we have seen this to a point come to a head in that many Reformed churches are now pushing this inclusivity concept. Now, I want to say right off the bat, my best friend since teenage years, gay, don't care. He's not a Christian. He's not held to the same moral standard as I am or that I hold myself to. We don't believe the same things. That's his choice. Don't care. Love the dude to death. Well, we'll never care. All growing up, had a bunch of gay friends. Don't care. It's not mine to judge those who are not putting themselves in a position to be held to a very specific objective standard, right? Within Christianity, we have a relatively clear, specific, objective moral standard limit that comes from God, right? Whereas in culture, we have a very subjective moral limit that comes from culture. It comes from people, it comes from government, but more than even those, it does come from just collective culture. Within culture, we have an ever-moving goalpost of what is right and what is wrong. What is right today, what is moral today, could very well be deemed immoral in the next 5 years. That is the issue with subjective moral standards. It's not based on anything that is objective. It's based on how people feel. It's based on emotion. And anybody who knows anything about psychology knows that emotion is the most unreliable thing within human nature. It can be a beautiful thing, sure, but it causes massive problems when that is your standard. When your standard is something that is completely finicky and contingent upon how people feel that day. That's what is happening within culture. Everybody sees it. Everybody's aware of it. Whether you agree with the LGBTQ thing or not, doesn't matter with this. We can all objectively look and see that we are being held to an ever-moving, ever-shifting, subjective moral standard. That's impossible to run a cohesive society when it's functioning that way. Whereas from the Christian perspective, we believe in an objective moral standard. That is God and his directives for us, which we obviously get in the scriptures, right? So within the Reformed movement, Reformed theology, Calvinist, we are seeing a push for the inclusion of the LGBTQ movement. This is from the Reformation Project. That's the website we're on right now. So what we're going to do, we're going to flip through. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I believe 8. Nope. 10. There are 10 points that they have posted in agreement of the inclusivity of the LGBTQ culture within Christian culture. So tonight we are playing devil's advocate. I'm going to present their arguments for why LGBTQ should be included and should no longer be seen as immoral sexual behavior. I hope you guys push back, or I hope you agree and tell me why you agree. Because again, I don't care what any of you believe either. That's not my job. I just want to talk about things that are deeper than surface level. So number one here, and then like I said, we are going to bring Katie on after we go through some of this. Katie has a very specific perspective of this that all of us can appreciate massively. She was on the last one. It was real good. So I want to bring her on here too in a little bit. If you guys have any specific points within this topic that you want talked about, just throw them in the chat and I'll try to make note of them. Number one that they have, experience of sound Christian teachings should show good fruit, not bad fruit. Non-affirming beliefs about same-sex relationships and transgender people contribute to serious harm in LGBTQ people's lives. From the inclusion of Gentiles in the church to the abolition of slavery, the church has a long history of revisiting the biblical text in light of compelling evidence that prevailing interpretations do not align with Jesus' teachings in Matthew 7, that good trees bear good fruit. I'm sure everybody knows the verse. Everybody knows what we're talking about. If you don't, do a quick Google search for Matthew 7. It's the whole section where he's talking about what we bear from the fruit is what shows kind of who we are and what matters. I'm curious how many of you believe that this is something that should be taken into account. So they're relating it to what? They're relating it to slavery, and they're relating it to the inclusion of the Gentiles in the church. Are those two things, those two movements, if you will, are those comparable to what we're looking at with the inclusion push of LGBTQ culture within the Christian culture? Personally, I find them very different. Okay, what we saw biblical history wise was slavery, and interestingly enough, I just posted a very long video, not long, 20 minutes, about biblical slavery. There was a TikTok person that put out this thing bashing Christians for basically agreeing with slavery. I posted a video about that, so if you want to know about biblical history of slavery, go check that out. It's the last one that I posted, but biblical history of slavery was very, very different than more modern examples of slavery. The entire function of how it worked was different. So no, they're not comparable. The inclusion of the Gentiles into the church, this is the fulfillment of what was always the plan. So again, my opinion is that no, they don't compare. They're two different things. That's just proper exegesis. It's proper interpretation. Whereas when we get to sexual immorality, those are pretty much the same. Now, somebody push back if you disagree, but I feel that today, if anything, things have become more perverse, not less. But regardless, these sexually immoral behaviors, I'm going to try to be careful about how I choose the word things. Sexually immoral behaviors today don't look a whole lot different than sexually immoral behaviors back then. You had homosexual that gets called out several times in the Bible. You have pedo, yada, 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 that got called out in the Bible, gets called out today. We have things that are pretty much the same, whether it's biblical history-wise or what we're seeing in current culture today. And like I said, I think if anything, we're just getting more perverse. And if anything, we're just aggregating in a worse manner and making these things a deeper pit in the sexual realm of culture. The universe is fundamentally built on polarity. Any ideology that doesn't acknowledge polarity is wrong from the jump. So that is Ghost's opinion there. Before you hear my views, no, my best friend is gay as well. She is also married and Christian. However, we are in agreement that our views are different. That does not mean I don't love her. And everything she has done for me, she's the best. 100%. Like I said, one of my best friends of my entire life is real gay, super gay. I love him. But it's not, I have nothing to do with what he chooses to do in his life, especially because he's not Christian. Everything should, of course, that kind of nuance is lacking nowadays. Yeah, 100%. 100%. I don't see anything wrong with that, though, Jalen. It is what it is. It is what it is. And it's not for us to push people about what they choose to do like that. If somebody wants to talk to you about it, is curious about your views, of where that aligns with the Bible. If it aligns with the Bible, then talk to them. But otherwise, I'm not a big proponent of shoving our views down somebody else's throat, because as you guys know, I don't think the Bible is something that we are capable of interpreting truly, properly, to a T. I don't think it's possible. So if anybody wants to come back to this one, let me know. We'll come back and revisit it. But that first one was experience of sound Christian teachings should show good fruit, not bad fruit, pushing for the inclusion of the LGBTQ community. Now, number 2, the Christian tradition does not address sexual orientation. In the ancient world, same-sex behavior was widely considered to be a vice of excess that might tempt anyone, like gluttony or drunkenness. Same-sex attraction wasn't understood as the sexual orientation of a small minority of people. Affirming Christians are not overturning the Christian tradition of LGBTQ people. Until recent decades, there has been no Christian tradition on LGBTQ people. How are you guys feeling about that one? The Christian tradition doesn't address sexual orientation. Take it on its face. Do you agree or do you disagree with that statement? That same-sex attraction wasn't understood as the sexual orientation of a small minority of people. I personally feel like in the Bible, sexual orientation is talked about. Sometimes, I'll be honest. I'll be honest, most of the time, inadvertently. However, it's still there. Sometimes explicitly. Therefore, it's still there. Leviticus 18:22. Now, I would push back on Leviticus because we can't necessarily push that on Christians. And I think they actually cover that too. But I don't think we have to go to Leviticus to see this. I think Leviticus is just an extra push. I think it helps the Jewish case. But even within the New Testament, we see sexual orientation. There are direct quotes to sexual orientation. There are direct statements about what a marriage is and who comprises of a marriage, or what a marriage is comprised of, and that relates to the sexual orientation of the individuals. That's my opinion. That's my view. Rumbly tumbly. I think it's important to separate the orientation from the actions. I agree with that for sure. For sure. And they do go into that a little bit here as well. I think it's actually the next one. Yep. I 100% agree with that. Yeah. It's very important to separate the orientation aspect from the actions aspect. I think one of the most famous things from the early 2000s within Christianity was telling people it's not, what do they say? I'm trying to remember. It's not the person, it's the sin. Somebody tell me. There was like a very catchy thing that Christians would say. It's not the sinner, it's the sin. Somebody knows what I'm talking about. Help me out. But something to that effect, that it's not the person, it's not the individual, it's the sin, it's the behavior, it's what they're doing. Right? I know there's a catchy Christian verbiage for it, but I can't. Somebody, you got to help me out. All right, so I would venture to say most of us probably disagree with this. There are many inadvertent references to orientation, and there are several very direct references to orientation. Jesus refers back to the Old Testament when talking about marriage as well. Don't hate the sinner, hate the sin. Thank you, Jalen. Yes, don't hate the sinner, hate the sin. That's the catchy Christian verbiage that they use. TikTok, go to YouTube. Get off TikTok. Get off TikTok. I can't read the chat. You guys got to go to YouTube. Tattoo Theist, same username. Go to YouTube. Don't hate the sinner, hate the sin. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. You guys all got it. I'm the only idiot who totally forgot it. All right, so I'm going to say we agree. Let's move on. Number 3, celibacy is a gift, not a mandate. Not a mandate. The Bible honors celibacy as a worthy calling, but it also makes clear that celibacy is a gift that not all have. We got a reference to Paul, and then I believe it's Jesus talking in Matthew. Yep. Not everyone can accept this word, but only those whom it has been given. Requiring that all gay Christians remain celibate for life because of their sexual orientation is at odds with the Bible's teaching on celibacy. Now, I will say right off the bat that this one only makes sense if you already subscribe to the inclusivity aspect of it. Okay. Otherwise, celibacy does make sense for those who have proclivities towards sexually oriented relationships, as we saw right above, that would be deemed as biblically unfit or biblically immoral. Right? So I have seen video titles about why love the sinner, hate the sin is harmful. Yeah, I don't like that. It was something that they really started pushing in the early 2000s. It was right after we made the shift from fire and brimstone to saved by grace. Nothing matters. God loves you. You're all under grace. Don't worry about it, man. It was during that same period. Love the sinner, hate the sin. It came out, I want to say like 3 to 5 years probably after that really became popular. And we moved to the grace model within Christianity. And we moved away from the fire and brimstone model. TikTok, go to YouTube, get off TikTok. Note, some of these jokes won't land. I love you, dude. I'm a big fan of the ghost. All right, so celibacy. Let me just say real quick. Who thinks that those within the LGBTQ culture, and I'm using an umbrella here, and I get that it's more nuanced than that, but let's just make it easy. Anybody within that culture who chooses to come to Christianity, should they stay celibate? How do we feel about that? What are people's opinions? You are entitled to your opinion, so do not feel bad about putting whatever you want. You are entitled to your opinion. We're not saying it's law. We're not saying we're going to treat anybody poorly. We're saying, what do we believe? Our beliefs don't hurt people. If we then take action off of our beliefs that are harmful, then we can hurt people. Your beliefs don't hurt anybody. So how do you guys feel about LGBTQ culture as a whole, gay, straight, bi, trans, whatever, coming into the church, claiming Christianity? Should they stay celibate from your belief that you are entitled to have? What are the opinions here? I can't cite the argument or points, but I've heard it denounced. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't make sense to begin with. We are what we do. You are a collection of behaviors and actions. So if you are somebody who constantly sins, you're a sinner and you are doing bad things. You're not in a good spot. That came with this whole movement of everybody love everybody. God loves everybody. It doesn't matter what you do. You're saved. You're saved by grace. Works don't matter. Do whatever the hell you want. It came with that movement. It's not exegetically sound. You can't just do whatever you want. We have adiaphora, which is the freedom under Christ that Paul talks about. Adiaphora, we have it, but it's to be used responsibly and with good intentions. Not to be used so you can self-seek and fill your pleasure however you see fit. That's not adiaphora. That's sin. Something I struggle with is when leaders are very vocal about LGBTQ, but totally silent on cheating, promiscuity. Boom, rumbly tumbly. I knew I loved you. I knew I liked you. So whenever I talk about LGBTQ, I always relate it to adultery because of what I assume you're getting at. Why are we treating LGBTQ people who we are defining as immoral due to their sexual behavior any different than we treat a heterosexual man or woman who is cheating on his wife or her husband? Those are both sexually immoral. Neither is any worse than the other. It drives me insane. Rumbly tumbly. If you see, I did a video on homosexuality, LGBTQ, whatever, a while back, but I talked in depth about that. That from my eyes, a man who cheats on his wife is no better or worse than a gay man. Why are they different? They're different because Christians are hypocrites, is why. Because Christians have an easier time dealing with it mentally. Somebody cheating on somebody, which is arguably worse in a way, because you're severely damaging the person you're with, that you're married to. You made a flesh tie with someone, and then you went out and you became one flesh with somebody else. I know you didn't actually, but you attempted to. You literally connected flesh with somebody else. You abandoned and you betrayed your partner. I would not treat adultery and the homosexuality movement any different from each other. So when I talk to somebody about one, I don't look at it any different than the other. I'm glad you brought that up. I think celibacy should be default unless you are called to marriage. So then, rumbly tumbly, do you think that homosexuals should be able to marry within a Christian context? Obviously, outside of Christianity, we don't care because that's not our place to judge or decide. But within a Christian context, if you were on the board that decided, would you say that LGBTQ intermarrying, so homosexual marriage, bisexual marriage, would that be permitted within a Christian context? If I were gay, knowing what I know about biology and how babies are made, I'd prefer being with the opposite sex than being celibate. Interesting view. Interesting view. So it's all about procreation for Ghost. I get it. I get it, man. You're trying to pass the seed. I'm with you. No matter whether you are gay or stray, if your proclivities towards sex is greater than your love of God, wouldn't that just show the placement in your head? Yeah, good point. For sure. I try to get outside myself sometimes and think like, TikTok, go to YouTube. I'm going to lose my mind. I try to get outside myself sometimes and think like, what if I was gay? What if all I wanted sexually was another man and I was Christian still? I was the same person otherwise. How hard of a life, man. Because like the sexual interaction of just that I know now because I'm a grown up with a child and a woman I've been with for 6 years, it's really important. It's like a big deal. So I try to think about like, well, what if I was gay and I felt that it was wrong for me to act on those sexual proclivities? Like I have a big heart for people who either think they are or straight up are gay and are also trying to do the Christian thing. I have a huge heart for it because I think it would just be really, really hard. It'd be really hard. Sorry, somebody's like knocking at the door, I thought. Yes, we shouldn't be hypocrites. All sexual immorality is wrong, regardless of gay or straight, 100%. I'm really not sure. I think that's why I'm here. Fair enough, Rumbly Tumbly, fair enough. Imagine trying to explain things to a TikTok audience. Oh, I don't need to imagine. I try, and it is quite the task. I'll tell you that. It is quite the task. All right, let's move on. Number 4, gender complementarity is a broad category, not a universally normative biblical teaching. I just feel the culture in the way they're writing this. It bothers me. Gender complementarity can refer to a variety of understandings of how men and women complement one another in ways that many non-affirming Christians believe are necessary for romantic relationships to be moral. For example, gender hierarchy, procreative capacity, anatomical complementarity, but the Bible does not teach that any particular understanding of gender complementarity is universally or exclusively normative. Let's talk about that. Are there gender roles in marriage? Let's word it like that because it's easier. Oh, you threw a bone down the hall? Nice. Are there gender roles in marriage? A marriage that is blessed as a covenant under God, does the man have a role and does the woman have a role? And then say we put two men together. Can one of them fill the role and the other one fill that role just as adequately as a male and a female could? Let's talk about that. If it was a gay, it was a gay poltergeist trying to derail the stream. I'm sorry in advance. Jesus, help me. I don't want to downplay how tough that must be, but this life isn't all about pleasure. Isaiah looks like some people have it rougher than others on surface level. For sure. Of course. Of course. I really like to sympathize. Not sympathize. I really try to, yeah, that's what it is. I try to sympathize with other people's issues and problems. And maybe that's just from all the years as, a pastor. I hear people's problems a lot, but I try to really put myself in their shoes and be like, if I was them experiencing what they were experiencing, how hard would that be? Are they overreacting? Are they underreacting? I try to really get in somebody's shoes because I don't want to be a hypocrite myself. And I also don't like thinking poorly of someone who's going through something just because maybe I would go through it a different way. Everything in the universe has a role. It's a machine, 100%. I mean, look at it from a naturalistic worldview, okay? Outside of a religious worldview. How does nature work? Outside of a very small number of what we'll call anomalies, nature requires a male and a female animal of some species to procreate. therefore to continue the population of whatever that animal is. I understand there are specific species of, insects, I believe, and then I think maybe like some lizards or something, I don't know, Cat will probably tell me, where two of the same sex can procreate. It is statistically negligible, the number that can do that same sex and the number that can't do that same sex. So it's just from a naturalistic worldview, it's not the norm, right? It's not normative. What we're trying to do today within culture is make it normative, which it's not, and it never will be, because most people don't lean that way. I think in a perfect world, traditional gender roles are great, but we don't live in a perfect world for sure. But does that mean we abandon them? Or does that mean we work very hard to change culture to bring them back? Here's the reality, man. If you go through human history, anytime you see gender roles and sexual choices derail from the norm, we see societal collapse. It's happened several times throughout human history. Societal collapse, the precursor is same-sex people getting it on, also adults and children getting it on, and then people becoming confused about what their gender role is. All these things have been precursors to societal collapse. So does that tell us something? Yeah, I think it does. Long-tailed lizards, or was it a whiptail? Yeah, isn't there a lizard? There's a lizard that I don't know if it's the boys or the girls. I think it's the boys. I don't know, though. I don't know, man. But two of the same sex lizards, they can have kids. But these are statistical anomalies, right? It is. It's societal. It's a societal thing. My brother is trans. Oh, I totally agree that not everybody should procreate. 100%. 100%. My brother is trans, so I totally understand. He was like a father for me when I was young. So all I'm trying to do is put my views in perspective as if I was in his shoes too. Yeah, exactly. That's what you have to do, man. To be fair, to be honest, and to be at least as subjective as you can be. As objective as you can be. You have to really try to get in somebody's shoes, as uncomfortable as it might be sometimes. It means we need to make sure we safeguard and protect women. I mean, I agree with that for sure. True, everyone shouldn't procreate for a variety of reasons, some positive, some negative. Definitely. Bring them back. I'm tired of working, Jalen. I mean, they were good. If you look at like some of the best times in society around the world is when the family unit was cohesive, very tied. Like the whole point of the family was to regulate itself so that government regulation could take a back seat. We've lost that. Families are destroyed. People are running amok, and now government interference has become very high, very high. Traditional gender roles put women in incredibly vulnerable positions. I wouldn't say it puts them in incredibly vulnerable. It can, but so can non-traditional. Like if a guy's going to be abusive, because I assume that's what you're talking about, they can do that from a non-traditional role as well. The gender roles, and let me be clear about this. Gender roles biblically are not, I am the man, so my wife does whatever I tell her to do. I'm the spiritual head of this house, so she's going to do whatever I tell her to do. Cat leader in the chat, that's my spouse. We don't live like that. And we live a very traditional relationship, 100%. But I don't boss her around. I don't tell her what to do. She is very independent. She brings in her own money on top of things, and she runs and takes care of our home. And I do other things. We very much believe in the roles, but none of that includes me telling her how to live her life or what she's allowed to do or what she's not allowed to do. And obviously hitting or physical violence, we shouldn't even have to talk about. It's not okay. I'm tired of working, but bring back roles for all the right reasons. Yeah, I mean, it's important. And for kids, more than anything, proper gender roles are paramount. And kids understanding and seeing what is a relationship. A child growing up in a traditional household is going to statistically be far better off than a child growing up in a non-traditional household where it's just a female, usually just mom. And then it goes and maybe sees the dad on the weekend, maybe never sees dad, but there's not a strong father figure in the house. Again, not somebody who bosses people around, just a strong father figure in the house. Those kids suffer statistically. I love working, but good golly, what were these women thinking? Let's show men we can work 40 hours a week too. Stellar ideology, Barbara. I don't think they're anomalous that some lizards procreate asexually. I think it's just another clue lesson from God, just like all of nature is. What is that clue or lesson? I'm very curious. Freaking Barbara. Oh, absolutely. But if a woman has no access to money, it is incredibly difficult to leave. Yes. But think too, I mean, if they're married, more often than not, a woman does get favor in the court system. So if the guy has money, then she, in many cases, they end up okay. But I completely agree. I completely agree. A woman choosing not to work so that she can fill the role of a wife, therefore leaves her vulnerable if the relationship doesn't work out. What I would urge women to do is get a prenup. And from the woman's view, you can have part of the prenup so that you are taken care of at least for X amount of time after a divorce. That way the male doesn't get screwed and the female doesn't get screwed. You're both protected in case something happens with the relationship. But I completely agree with you that it puts women in a vulnerable place, for sure. I believe in running the household in a traditional setting as a woman simply because I like my dishes done how I like my dishes. Whatever, Kat. I do dishes so good. I do so good for you. I work 2 jobs now, but other things. It'd be nice to have a nice traditional life. See, let's go, ladies. Change culture. Change culture. I believe the problem originated with men not being Christ-like to their women. Everything is downhill from there. That's exactly what it is. I remember I did a video probably 2 months ago about the fact that women are not in their role, not because of them. Women are not in their role because men suck. Because specifically in our setting, Christian men have become worthless. They're awful spiritual leaders. Therefore, the woman usually is a spiritual leader in a household. They're awful providers emotionally, psychologically. Therefore, the woman feels completely untended to. And then at the same time, the men still expect the women to give them what they want, which is usually sex and peace, right? But the men are completely unwilling to fill their role because it's hard. It's hard. Therefore, they don't do it. They get home from work and feel like they have to do nothing else. I went and did my job. Now I'm home. I'm going to sit on the couch. I'm going to drink beer. I'm going to eat Cheetos. And I still expect you to have sex with me later tonight. That is what men have become. That is disgusting. That is so gross. You come home from work and you help. You help with the kids, or you help do something that she doesn't have time to do. You do that until bed. You fill the role as a man. You should be constantly trying to outrun your wife. Because that's the way it should be. You should be leading and she should be following. I don't see that a lot. I see men failing massively. It's very sad. Women can be hypocritical with gender roles and work. I'm not going to take out the trash at the restaurant where I work. Get the male employees to do it. Yeah, I mean, that would be hypocritical for sure. Yes, some people use the Bible to justify bad behavior. 100%. I talked about that in the slavery video I just posted. Christians will never stop doing that. We love to use the Bible inappropriately to defend crappy behavior. I do dishes so well is what you meant. No, I was being sarcastic. So I did mean that I do dishes so good. So good. And I'm not sure what lessons the asexual lizards. All right, I'm gonna skip through because otherwise we're gonna sit here all night. Okay, we did complementary roles. I think most of us affirm that we disagree with that. TikTok, go to YouTube, same username. Get off TikTok. It's a Chinese spy app. Be better. The arc of scripture points towards inclusion, not exclusion. Now, I want to preface this one. Joe, what is the arc of scripture? It's what I say as aggregation. So that's the verbiage that I use if you guys are here often. What I tell you guys is that to figure out, oh, the floof is in the house. To figure out what the full view of the Bible is on a specific topic that the Bible doesn't talk specifically about, or maybe not enough specifically about, I tell you guys that we need to aggregate the information. What does that mean? It means we take a whole bunch of data points from the Bible, we bring them all together and decide, okay, based on all of the information, all of the data points from the Bible that we have, what is the most likely or most probable answer to this question? That is aggregation of data to try to come to a conclusion. Another way you'll see that written or talked about is they'll call it the arc of scripture. So looking at all of scripture, what is the most probable answer to whatever our question is? In the Old Testament, those who were sexually different, like eunuchs and barren women, were barred from entering the assembly of the Lord. See Deuteronomy 23:1. But within the text of Scripture, we see greater inclusion of gender and sexual minorities. One of the first Gentile converts to Christianity was an Ethiopian eunuch. See Acts 8:26 through 39. The New Testament's trajectory towards greater inclusion of eunuchs offers important precedents for the inclusion of gender and sexual minorities today. Now, one thing I just want to say, guys, is like these LGBTQ positive, I guess, groups, they should hire me to write their arguments. Because as we go through these, and it's not like a pride thing. It's how, what argument do you choose to go with and why? I feel like I could have done this way better because this is an awful argument. I'll give some of the other ones their placement because they're good arguments. Even if I disagree with them, they're good arguments. This is an awful argument. Comparing eunuchs from biblical times, comparing eunuchs to the LGBTQ community, Ghostgate answered your question. They're incomparable. They are not the same thing. It's honestly, it's kind of silly and embarrassing that they would put this on the list. Comparing eunuchs to homosexuality or to trans is awful. It makes no sense. There's no correlation whatsoever. Eunuchs had a very specific placement. There was usually a specific reason they were eunuchs. It has nothing to do with this. Nothing. Nothing. So to me personally, I feel, I'm pushing my opinion very hard. I'd be curious to see what you guys think about this, but I think it's awful. Because one, they're looking to the Old Testament, at least partially, but then they're also solely focusing on this concept of eunuchs. And that because there was more inclusion of eunuchs later on in the New Testament, therefore, we should include sexual immorality, which is what most Christians believed LGBTQ was up until a year ago. So because eunuchs were approved in the New Testament, therefore, sexual immorality is no longer sexual immorality. Being a eunuch was never sexually immoral. It was a separate thing. So to compare that to something that we're trying to argue is not sexual immorality, it's just a bad argument. But if anybody has anything to add, you can throw it out now. Otherwise, I'm going to move right along because to me, that's just a terrible, terrible point. Some were born that way, some were voluntary, and others were chosen to be. Exactly. Yes, many different reasons that somebody became a eunuch, or as you said, were born that way. None of them except for one, have anything to do with sexual immorality. And ironically, the one is actually if someone was sexually immoral in a, being careful for YouTube, in a really, really bad way, they would sometimes forcefully become eunuchs. So is that a good argument for sexual immorality? Not really. And by not really, I mean not at all. Intersex people have always existed, and it's important we make space for them and respect them. Sure, 100%. This doesn't have anything to do with intersex, though. Intersex is a different thing. But I don't disagree with you at all, Rumbly Tumbly. I don't disagree with you at all. They do exist. They are out there. They're just like gingers, and they're rare. They're rare, but they exist. I exist. The absolute straw grasping. Well said, sir. Well said. It was a respected role within the church. No sexual drive leads to more dedication to the Lord. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Those were usually people who chose it, as you said earlier, that were voluntary eunuchs. Isn't intersex a natural eunuch? That's not my understanding, but I could absolutely be wrong. That is not something I spend time on. I thought intersex was somebody who was born with both. Am I wrong? If I'm wrong, please fact check me right now. Right now. I could definitely be wrong. Ginger snap. Actually, let me just Google it here. Intersex. Intersex. When somebody generally appears to be one sex but has the dominant anatomy of the other sex. So we're both wrong. Rumbly Tumbly and I are both wrong. Still, doesn't relate to what we're talking about here. And sorry, there we go. And doesn't relate to a eunuch. Boom. All right, let's move on. Number 6, Sodom and Gomorrah addresses gang rape, not a loving relationship. The destruction of Sodom. I don't need to read this. Okay, so Sodom. This one is correct. This one is correct. Within Scripture, Sodom and Gomorrah was not talking about. You could have a slight argument that homosexuality is included, but the key focus, the thesis of what was happening, it was multiple people attacking a singular person. I'm being careful for YouTube. You guys know what I'm talking about, and it's on the screen. That is what Sodom and Gomorrah was about. However, there are references to other sexually immoral behavior, which biblical history-wise, most interpreters have decided that homosexuality was one of the behaviors. But it wasn't the thing, the punch, that made Sodom and Gomorrah what it was. That was gang grape eating. Okay? So that one from my view is true. So I'm going to burn past it. If anybody has anything to add, let me know. Yeah, the R word is definitely a bad word on YouTube. They don't like that. And YouTube already hates me. So I'm not going to make it worse. I think people have included intersex people in the gay and trans community where they shouldn't be. It's a different category. Yeah, and interestingly enough, many homosexuals are forcefully pulling themselves out of the LGBTQ community because they do not agree with what is happening because of the push towards kids. So you have things like Gays Against Groomers. Like 3 months ago, the Illinois chapter head for Gays Against Groomers, I interviewed on YouTube. It's on my channel because I live in Illinois. He reached out to me. He wanted to chat. So we chat. He's awesome. But there's this big movement of homosexual people who are like, we're not going to have anything to do with what the LGBTQ community is doing. We are not a part of that community. We want nothing to do with them. We are out of here. We are out of here, which is great. Really, really good. And so my point is, intersex people, I agree. What's happening is they're lumping as many different people in here, like BLM became a part of LGBTQ. They're lumping as many groups of people into this category as possible to try to get more online pull. They'll trend more, they'll have more popularity, therefore they'll get more sheep to join the cult. I think we should be loving to intersex people and they should have spaces, etc. But I don't conflate that with escaping absurd lifestyles that can negatively impact society at large, gay or straight. I am 100% in agreement. Yep. Could you explain why, Jalen? I think it makes a lot of sense. I think people have included. Why would it make sense? LGBTQ is very different. Intersex is, I'll let you guys sort that out. Number 7. The prohibitions in Leviticus don't apply to Christians. I will cut us through this one. They don't. Specifically to the Levites, we're talking about things like Mosaic law. These were Jewish laws. These don't apply in any way whatsoever to a Christian. Okay, and we can kind of leave it at that. If you need to hear more about that, find my TikTok page, go to the video with 3 million views. I explain very quickly why Levitical Mosaic law has absolutely nothing to do with us. Moving on. Romans addresses unrestrained lust, not sexual orientation. In the ancient world, it was assumed that all people could be satisfied with heterosexual sex, but that some people went beyond it due to their insatiable lust, leading them to engage in same-sex behaviors. Paul isn't condemning being gay as opposed to being straight. He is condemning self-seeking excess as opposed to moderation, a concern made clear by his repeated use of the term lustful, and by his description of people exchanging or abandoning heterosexual sex. How do you guys feel about this one? This is a section that, again, especially if you take it back to Greek, it's relatively clear. The word is there. The implications of people abandoning natural, their words, not mine, natural sex, which we've already discussed. It's not a hit to gay people. It's reality. Natural sex in nature is between a male and a female animal. Period. Therefore, biblical references within this context of abandoning natural sex, that between a man and a woman, for unnatural sexual behaviors is relatively clear. How you guys feel about it? Where do we land? Isn't the point just to make sure everybody is respected and safe? No, it is not. If that was the point, I would still be going and being okay with the idea of a gay pride parade. No, what it's turned into is absolute perversion. Absolute perversion. There are more videos than you could ever care to watch of people twerking and stripping in front of children. It is not just about respect and safety. It's become about perversion of the next generation. And that is where people started to lose their mind. Before that, nobody really cared. The crazy, crazy people on the right end of the political spectrum have always cared. They always will. Ignore them. However, moderate people, leaning right or moderate religious people, nobody cared about gay pride parades. Nobody cared about any of that stuff until they started pushing it at our kids. Then things became a little bit scary. Then things became unmanageable. And then people started speaking up and speaking out against it. It's not about what's between your legs. It's about what's between your ears. Pull more sheep into the cult. I think that perpetuates the idea that we are recruiting people and the negative connotations of that. I don't think you are recruiting people. I do think that the extreme political end of the LGBTQ community is recruiting people, because they are. But again, this is when I say things like that, I'm talking about a small subsect of that community. I'm not talking about most gay people. Most gay people are fine. They're just people living their lives, just trying to get by, just trying to love somebody or just go through life. I'm talking about the extreme political end of the LGBTQ community that does recruit people. They absolutely do. And that got in bed with BLM during the riots, and that is pulling children into drag events. Those are what I'm talking about. Normal, regular people who are gay or trans, I'm totally fine with them. They're just living their life. I have no issue with that. None at all. They're not held to my standard. But people who push things on children, I have something to say about that. That's why I feel they fit under the same umbrella. Sorry, a bit late. Kink and parades. Yeah, kink right in front of young kids. Sometimes pushing up against young kids. It's hard to hide things now, man. We have the internet. There's videos of everything. It's not hard to find. All right, moving on. 1 Corinthians and 1 Timothy address exploitation. The Greek words used by Paul in 1 Corinthians 6:9 and 1 Timothy 1:10. You got these references to homosexuality, may have referred to certain forms of same-sex behavior, but most likely exploitative forms. This is a very new interpretive assumption, that we began to see, I feel like, about 5 years ago. So when I started my master's in seminary, it was at a place where they were a part of the inclusion of this. So they were for it. So I remember having classes where we spoke about what they called mistranslation of these words right here. They're Greek terms. They're in the original manuscripts. And their push was that it's talking about exploitative sex, which could be between an adult and a child, or it could be just a forced sexual experience, right? That's what they're saying now. Nobody ever said that before a couple years ago. It was not mainstream. It was never taught in seminary. These were two relatively agreed upon words of what they meant in English, and the closest we could get in English. We must recognize a distinction between the same-sex behavior the Bible condemns and the desires of the LGBTQ Christians for love, companionship, and family today. So I will say that these two terms, there are times where they are used in an exploitative context, for sure. The issue, though, and this is why translations are so difficult, is because there are more references to them outside of an exploitative context. So then it becomes kind of difficult, if, again, playing devil's advocate for them, it becomes kind of difficult knowing where that starts and where that ends. However, again, we have more references to these terms outside of an exploitative context than we do within an exploitative context. And then the verses, the references that they say are exploitative uses of the word, there's not really anything really concrete to make you think like, oh yeah, they're talking about exploitation. It's not there. But I get why they feel like it could fill a gap. I get it. I understand where they're coming from. I can sympathize with the ideology. And number 10. And then I want to bring Katie on because I cannot stay on past 7:30. According to Ephesians, marriage is fundamentally about commitment, keeping our covenant with our spouses as a reflection of God's own covenant with us through Jesus. The Bible doesn't teach that marriage requires procreation or gender hierarchy. Kind of does. Instead, it teaches that the essence of marriage is covenantal love and faithfulness. And Christian same-sex couples live out that vision of marriage every day. I will say, though, nowadays, you can fix the procreation issue because we have, modern medical science. But again, if you go over the general arc of the Bible or you aggregate all the information, a marriage is between a man and a woman, period. That's all the Bible ever says about it. Beyond that, procreation and being a parent, being a parent of a child within a family context is pushed quite a bit. It's pushed quite a bit. So again, we have all these tons and tons and tons and tons of references of a marriage being between a man and a woman. And we have tons of references of a family unit pushing for having children. Does that mean you have to? No. But you have a lot of evidence that says that that is what the Bible recommends. At the very least, it is a recommendation, right? Kink should not be in public parades. I agree 100%. Be fruitful and party and do whatever you want. Yep. That's the way I read it too. That's the way I read it too. Marriage in the Bible has been poly, though. Yeah, you're right. It did exist. It did exist. But again, you're taking, do we base our entire faith off of the few or the many? These are the things that, you have to decide as an interpreter of a religious movement. You have to decide. Poor Solomon. All right, Katie, if you want to go to the event voice, we can pop you in now. And you can just kind of go over, who you are, where you sit with all this. Again, what is your perspective? Because you obviously have a very specific perspective. And I think most of the people here were probably not here when you talked the first time. TikTok, go to YouTube, same username. You're going to miss out. You're not going to be able to hear her. But did the author of that book of the Bible say, oh, hey, footnote, this is wrong? No, but the fact that there isn't a footnote saying something is wrong doesn't make it not wrong, right? Otherwise, you'd have to say that they needed to do that everywhere in the Bible. And they obviously don't, right? Does the new law actually address polyamory? What is the new law? You mean like the New Testament? This is what I'm saying. Any reference to marriage, I think 100% of them in the New Testament are in reference to a man and a woman, period. Outside of that, yes, you can find some, Katie, I'll unmute you in a second. Outside of that, you can find references to polyamory, for sure. It existed. It was a thing. But do we base an entire faith off of something that happened a few times in a book that technically isn't even a Christian book? It's our history, which was Jewish. Or do we base it off of the New Testament, which, again, I'm like 99% sure has 100% reference to two people, to monogamy, and between a male and a female. All right, Katie, you are unmuted from my end. And then just test the mic out.
Hello,
all right,
this is Katie. Can you hear me?
Can everybody hear her? Is she good? I can hear you fine. So I assume
great.
It's all good.
Okay, great. Hi, everybody. My name is Katie. I'm a little ill right now. I got a COVID test. It is negative, but I still feel kind of not so good. So that's why, I mean, I might sound a little different than the last time I was on this. podcast. But hi, my name's Katie. I'm 25. I'm from New York, and I am a queer Christian. And looking forward to talking about that from you guys with you guys. I am not going to. I'm gonna try and stay away from debate. I'm gonna try and stay with discussion, especially based on, sharing my personal experiences and my views and thoughts about this topic.
Sounds good. So, is there anything else specifically kind of about what are your views? Where do you sit with the stuff that we've touched on?
It's hard. I suppose I would kind of lean more towards the side B side of things. I can definitely say that I denounce the hypersexualization in front of kids. I can definitely say that I denounce making your orientation your entire personality. I can definitely say that parts of my community does go too far. And I denounce that, and I do not claim people who do certain things. Just like people who are Christian who go too far with certain things, I don't claim them either. But I guess I would be more of the, I guess, I think where I've kind of landed is at the very least, I think that God does not smile upon homosexual sexual relations, which I don't even know where the line is for that because what even is sex? Um, but I don't think that having a companion in life I don't know if I would say that marriage. I don't know. It's really hard and blurry for me right now. So if you could give me some more prompts, I'd be happy to try.
Yeah, so how about this? Because I know when you came on the first time, you talked about this side A, side B, and I had no idea what the hell you were talking about. So can you explain a little just what that is, side A, side B?
Okay. I'm gonna use Google.
No problem.
Side B Christians are those who believe that following Christ means affirming. No, wait. Side A is from my side A consisted of LGBT Christians who believed living in a same-sex romantic relationship is not a sin, and side B, I guess, is there's probably people who think that even the orientation is wrong. There are probably people who think that just the sex part is wrong. There are probably people that think that you can't even have a like boyfriend or girlfriend of the same sex. I guess there's very big variation of and I bet there's probably some variation in the side A as well as about, should we therefore attempt to convert them or should we love them? But side A is for affirming, side B is for I don't think that you should I don't think God smiles on same-sex relationships.
Okay. And then how about this? What is from your view, because you obviously have a very specific perspective, how do you feel personally about the inclusion of the community in Christian leadership? And I guess from both the perspective of if they are engaging in sex within their, wants, and maybe if they choose to be celibate but still have that proclivity.
I guess I would venture to follow that up with do you ask pastor about their sexual life before they can go on the altar and be, in a position of leadership? Is it appropriate to ask about someone's, private life? That's kind of what comes to mind about what you just said.
Well, they do though. So I mean, when I was getting ordained, they asked if I'd been divorced. They asked if I had committed adultery in the past. I mean, I got asked personal questions for sure. But even let's take that out. Let's say for them just personally, integrity is a thing. So I mean, if I knew right now I was cheating on Kat, but I was also pastoring a church, the right thing to do would be to step down. And the reason for that is because I was committing a sexual sin. So let's say they had integrity. Is it something that biblically is right or wrong? So let's just do the morality aspect.
Biblically, you're asking the wrong person biblically. But I mean, every single one of us is sinners. You know, none of us can throw that first stone.
For sure.
You know, anyone can denounce. I have a very strong, vehement reaction towards stories of like sexual abuse among pastors. You know, that viral video of that man who said, "Oh, I have committed adultery," and he did an altar call, and you know, a young woman stepped forward and she said, "That was me. You remember when we did that when I was 16 in your office?"
God.
You know that one? You know that one?
No.
No, you haven't seen this?
Oh my God. Oh my God.
At first, the people in the pews were like, you know, you didn't say she was 16, and then some, you know, and then eventually, blah, 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 and then they all say, you know, they all put their hands on him, and we love you, pastor, we love you, pastor, and what a spit in the face of that victim who stepped.
Fuck.
Wait, are you allowed to say that on YouTube?
Yeah, you can swear. I apologize though, because I try not to. But good God, that's disgusting.
Jalen said I saw that. I think Penguin Z30, or you know the one, Charlie. I think he reacted to that. I think that one of the atheist YouTube channels that I watch has also covered it. Either Believe It or Not, or maybe Holy Kool-Aid. But
that's wild.
You know, stuff like that gets me so angry, and I hate that some people would automatically take one look at like a gay person and automatically lump them in with that kind of behavior. Which is why, if you watched the first interview, when I was in 8th grade at a private Catholic school, I was put in the boys' locker room because I came out as bi-curious in 8th grade. And they took one look at me and suddenly assumed that I would be like looking at the girls, and you know,
yeah.
And I kind of don't. I'm kind of not so proud to say that this thought has come to mind. But like, you know, some of these girls also went to the same high school as me, and even in 8th grade, I saw. Listen. We could talk about modesty. I listen. It's not empowering to be a 13-year-old girl dancing on TikTok or wearing belly button shirts and booty shorts. What does based mean, by the way?
It means you're right on.
Okay, I thought based was a bad thing.
No, it's a positive thing.
Okay, and I just remember seeing girls in my class dressing that way, and I remember seeing them grind on boys and stuff with boys on the dance floor, and I remember hearing them brag about how they could have sex without getting emotionally attached, and not to be. I just find it ironic, and so I mean, listen. I'm not about to shame these girls for where they are in their journey and what they choose to do. I am not about to do the whole she wears short skirts, I wear t-shirts. I am better than her because I don't wear short skirts. And, you know, we're not about to do the slut shaming and the higher ground. You know what I mean? Not about to do that. And I, once again, have forgotten where I was going with this. What was the question?
I don't know. I got kind of thrown off. Let me think.
I don't know. Like my ADHD, I do that all the time. I go, I'm like, wait. Okay,
I'm still just reeling from the pastor and the 16-year-old. I'm like, my like heart is beating. I want to just lay him out a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, then, so I mean, we were talking about if the person has integrity. So an example, I guess, in James 3:1, you have, not many of you should become teachers, my brothers, for you know that we who teach will be judged with greater strictness. And then I relate that to all sin is the same, right? The only caveat to that is that we do have indication within the New Testament that sexual sin in some way, it's not clear, but in some way is more damaging than other sins. So whether it's worse or not, whatever, I would say it seems to be but it's at least different. It's more damaging. So therefore, somebody who understands and believes that they're committing a sexual sin and then continuing on with teaching doesn't seem great. I would say that the example of the dude who touches a 16-year-old, that dude should not be. And I'd rather have a gay dude as a pastor. 100%.
I mean, sexual. I definitely, especially because of my experience in 8th grade, I definitely do not like the one-dimensionness that we see gay people as just sexual and sexual sin and homosexual and sexual proclivities and sexual behaviors. You know, like
Sure.
I want you to think of one of your crushes in high school and how you felt towards her. That's probably almost identical to the way that I felt towards my crushes in high school. You know, it's not just about sex. We have, like I listened to the Taylor Swift songs, and Sparks Fly was the first Taylor Swift song that was previously kind of reserved or designated in my mind from one of my guy crushes, and then later got like switched over in my mind because like every crush has like a song, right? Sparks Fly was the first song that was previously for a boy and then also for a girl. And it's more Taylor Swift and less I don't know, like the sexual pop songs, I want to ride that, and it's more that. And I wish we saw everybody saw us as more than just sex.
Then let me give it to you like this. I'll switch it up a little bit. So let's say I'm a pastor, and let's say I'm married. These are true things. Now let's say outside of sex, I am emotionally or psychologically lusting after a woman who is not Kat. I'm bonded to Kat. So same thing, taking physical sex out of the equation, but I am desiring someone, again, not in a sexual way, but I desire her psychologically. I desire her emotionally. So let's say it from that perspective.
Where's the line? Where's the line, though?
I would say the desire alone is wrong.
The desire to leave Kat and be with her instead, or the desire to cheat on Kat with another woman, that would be wrong. But I mean, to enjoy someone's company, I don't think is wrong.
Well, no, of course not.
It's just where exactly. I mean, does that mean you can't enjoy the company of anybody else other than your wife? No, I mean, like, I guess that would be like, where's the line for you?
Well, the minute I start psychologically or emotionally feeling things towards another woman, that would be deemed as something that should only go to Kat.
I would say also engaging it or feeding it at all. That's where my line would be, is if you engaged it at all. Scrolling through her social media, etc., engaging it, or like having, a Taylor Swift song about her and doing your little music video in your mind of what it would look like with anyone, I guess that.
So would I be fit, in your opinion, then to lead a congregation or to lead a group like this, a Christian group, and then take it back to LGBTQ, non-sexual, but knowing I'm doing something wrong?
I don't know. Okay. I don't know if I have an answer for that right now. Let's talk about something else that I might have a better grasp and answer on, because I don't have that right now for you.
That's fair. I'd rather you say you don't know than just spit out some stuff. No, it's good. Let me got anybody. I should have asked this a while ago, but if you guys have any questions for her specifically, either get in the voice chat or just throw it out there. Okay, so let me think. Well, I guess when did you start to see the inclusion happen within Christianity? Like, when did you first notice it? How old are you? You said 25?
Yeah, I would say in college.
Okay.
At another college in the area, the more expensive private Catholic college, they had a retreat for LGBT Christians, and it was with the guise of acceptance and we love you and we're sorry that anybody has hurt you. And I wanted to go to this so bad, but well, you're not a student at this school. And I was like, come on, do you have any idea how much I need this? You know? Um, but I mean, and what are we accepting? I like that you made the distinction between, people twerking in front of kids versus just people like me,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
people like your friend, although we shouldn't immediately, size people up to, okay, I'm gonna box you in the not okay and the okay. I don't think we should do that too much, but
No, by their fruit. By their fruit. I assume every person within the LGBTQ community that I meet is just fine until I see otherwise. Which person in real life has been very few, right? Most people I meet within that community are awesome. They're great. They're real fun to be around. They're good people. But we obviously have a very big purview now because of the internet. So you see these other things. So yeah, I would never judge somebody right away. That's not fair.
I don't like that these, I don't like that we are representing ourselves in a way at Pride Parade. I don't like what I see at Pride Parades, and it should not be a place where you bring your kids. I don't know if I would put more judgment and shame or whatever on the parents who bring the kids or the people who are dressed in Speedos and, twerking and bouncing their fat butt on a pride parade,
Yeah.
I don't know, but I definitely think that needs to stop because people are going to think that that's all we are. And, the snowflakes who, come up with crazy stuff like weather, gender on Tumblr and stuff, and the people who go way too far. I think they're making a mockery of what the majority of us is, and you're making us look bad. Of course, people are going to see that and judge all of us.
Yes.
I don't like it.
Yeah, that's exactly it. That's why you have this gays against groomers movement that's against the and they have trans people in there too.
Should not be a conversation about whether or not the book of it's called Genderqueer. It's the most controversial book. It's a graphic novel, and a couple of the pages include drawings of sex acts.
Yes.
And me standing up and saying this should be banned in children's libraries should not be a conversation. There should be no, but there should be no, but like this should not be a conversation. And on the way back from the Pride Parade, I had this conversation with someone on the train. There were all the people from the Pride Parade also on that bus. And I said, and I fully acknowledge that people are listening in on this conversation and probably judging me. Like, I know.
Good for you. Good for you.
Some of them are going to think that and say, wow, she doesn't like teaching inclusivity to kids. Listen, treat everyone with kindness and respect no matter what. Great. If your classmate decides to change their name in the middle of the school year, respect that. This kid has 2 mommies, and that's okay. We should treat everyone with kindness.
Yeah.
All for that, 20,000%. But where it's come to, like,
don't twerk on kids. Not that hard.
No, don't.
Not that hard.
Just don't.
I agree. So have you seen the drag shows in churches yet?
No, I don't know if drag, because I think that drag is a form of adult entertainment. I think it was Matt Walsh, who got just his reaction was taken out of context of these people should be, put in jail for the rest of their life, and they shot him down like, oh my gosh, you hateful. And they said, interesting how you cut out what I was reacting to. It was like a Christmas drag show.
I know what you're talking about.
The tits in a box and the reindeer twerk. Yes. Should not be a conversation. Should not be a conversation. And it's wild that it is a conversation where someone could be on the other side of that.
Yeah, that's the thing. And like you said, the sad part about it is, man, like in real life, most people in the community you meet are cool and they're normal. And, even if we disagree on like
with what I said, but
what is right or wrong. But you've got with the internet, you have whatever is the wildest shit gets isolated and just blown up. And so everybody who's normal and doesn't know any gay people or doesn't know any trans people, they're like, oh, that's what trans people are. That's what gay people are. which is just not true. It's not true.
True. Yes. Thank you.
It's really sad. Yeah, it's very sad. Like I said, I've grown up around, I was just around it a lot. Yeah, I grew up Catholic, but I was around gay people a lot for whatever reason. And I never met anybody that I was like, wow, they're perverted. I'm like, I'm more perverted than them.
My concern with the having drag queens around kids is, what if the kid, wow, I want to see more of your work, and then they type in her drag, and then, oh, sweet Jesus, what did I just click on? You know, listen, you can tone it down for the kids, but then, oh, wow, you're amazing. I want to follow you on social media. Oh, sweet Jesus, what did I just click on?
Agreed. Yeah, that's a good point, actually. That's a really good point. I haven't thought about that exact thing. That's a really good point. Yeah, because even if they did tone it down and did like a kid-friendly drag show, if that could possibly exist, if they were to search her after, they'd see probably some wild stuff.
Yeah,
it's a good point. I've never thought about that. Yeah,
that's my concern. And listen, again, I will always come back to this: treat everyone with kindness and respect, no matter what. Great, let's push that. This kid in your class has 2 mommies, and that's okay. Fine, great, but I don't like what it's become and what it's mainly being represented as.
Yeah, it's sad. It's definitely sad. So let me see what time it is. 7:27. So
are we already late?
No,
I feel like there's so much more. I feel like there's so much more I wanted to talk about.
I know. I honestly think we need to do a part 3. We'll put it on. Right. I mean, this is prevalent.
I would be happy to.
Yeah, it's huge. It's culturally prevalent. Maybe on the next one, you and I can go back and forth in DMs and maybe put some stuff together
of what we want to talk about.
Yeah, let's do that next time. And we'll run like a poll for different topics that everybody wants to see covered, and maybe you and I just kind of go through them.
And I would be brave enough to, if it's asked respectfully, then I would be open to answering any kind of questions, kind of like an AMA.
Yeah.
And, part of me always wonders with the 8th grade thing. I wonder if I know for a fact that one of the girls from CTK in my class in 2012 has come out as a lesbian. And I got so angry because, listen, I came out as bi-curious in 2012. You put me in the boys' locker room. I watched as one by one all the girls stepped on the other side of the line, and I was left alone.
Wow.
And you get to come out in 2019, and your mother says, I'm so proud of you, and everyone, I'm like, it's this... Internally, I can't, say I'm not proud of this, but I was like, now it's your turn to go in the boys' locker room. Let's see how you like it. I would love to see. Now it's your turn to go in the boys' locker room. And I wrestled with that. I apologized to God about that sentiment, but I allowed myself to feel it and, talk to therapists about it. But, I was so internally angry. And I remembered a detail is maybe 7th grade, the no hate campaign, right? Everybody wrote that on their hands, and then they did what they did to me. Like, I remember, I get so angry when I think about the injustice.
Yeah.
And what's the music teacher, why are you guys writing on your hands? Oh, it's to spread awareness and to end bullying. And the music teacher said, how you end bullying? By treating people good and not bullying them. And I didn't like that teacher, like she said, and behaved like not such a good teacher, but I want to raise that up. I do remember that. And I remember, so the podcasts that I listen to about like religious trauma and topics such as that, a lot of them cite EDMR as as something that has helped them with their trauma, and I just got approved finally to go see an EDMR specialist. Nice. It's gonna be like an 1.5-hour bus ride, but I finally got approved, so hopefully I can continue this journey of healing with CTK in 8th grade. And if any of you from CTK are listening, I mean, I don't even know what to say, but like, I got hurt. Specifically, you hurt me, and I'm still wrestling with that. And please, for the love of God, don't ever do this to another kid. I'm going to finish that letter and I'm going to send it to CTK and just tell my story and beg them to please. It doesn't matter about agreeing with LGBT or not.
Yeah.
This is about treating kid like it says in the Catechism of the Catholic Church. They are to be treated with respect and dignity. Even though I don't like the part where it says right after that, even though they are inherently disordered. I don't like that, but, yes, okay, rant over.
No, it was a good rant. It was a good rant. Rumbly said they found EDMR super helpful.
Mm-hmm. My fear is that I'm going to get to this EDMR and, it's not going to be, and I'm like, that's it. That's it. I don't feel any different, but I'm just gonna give it a try, give it my all, and the more you put into it, just believe that it'll help.
That's exactly right. That's a good that's a good view to have of it. I'm sure it'll help, man. It's helped a lot of people. There's been great success with that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, do you have anything else you'd like to throw out? Otherwise, we'll wrap it up for tonight, but we will put the part 3 on.
I do, if anyone is interested, I did make a video of It Gets Better where I tell all the story of, 8th grade and how it got better for me. Like I said last time, the easiest way to find my YouTube channel is to search Katie Sky Critical Mistakes, which will lead you to my YouTube cover of Critical Mistakes by 888, and then in the video description it says this is my vlog channel, and then It Gets Better.
Beautiful. All right. And hey, real quick, actually. So Kat asked, what do you think of the amount of people who identify as gay now? Do you think it's realistic or possible to have so many in the community, especially in recent years? So basically, do you think, obviously there are gay people and trans people, but do you think the sheer volume at the moment is largely a social construct of culture or natural?
Ooh.
It's a good question. Yeah.
I would hate to invalidate anybody's feelings. I know who I am. I know how I feel. And, I know this about myself. I will kind of on a slight tangent, if I were going to denounce or have some healthy skepticism about anything, it would have to be the explosion of autism and neurodivergence and self-diagnosing of stuff. I don't think that being gay is in that category, but I do want to have some healthy skepticism of the trans stuff. I kind of agree with the, nobody told me I was trans when I was a tomboy as a kid. I do think that sometimes it's a little too extreme of, then you must, you can't have it both ways. My best friend Chelsea and I have talked about this. You can't be gender roles, pink does not equal girl and blue doesn't. That's arbitrary. And then how do you know that you're a girl? I like the color pink and Barbie.
I mean,
You just said that you can't have it both ways. Gender roles, yes, arbitrary. I don't think they should be as set in stone, but gender, I don't think we should go to the extreme of the kids who were raised without gender, quote unquote, and then that documentary about the Swedish or Norwegian, MAPA.
Yeah.
Has anyone seen that? I don't think that, because then you can hear the kid, do you want to be a boy or a girl today?
Yeah.
Do we have to go through this every morning? Do we have to do this? I do. There's extremes that I will denounce and have healthy skepticism. Yeah. But I don't want to automatically. I don't like how the craziness leads everyone to automatically judge when someone says, "I think I might be trans." Oh, it's because of the TikTok and the the same way as certain representation and the way we talk about it leads you to have certain jump to some conclusions and stereotypes of what you think that means.
For sure.
I related very much, and my friends didn't get this, but I did when I watched Shrek as a tween and a teenager, about how Donkey, take a one look at me, what am I? Expecting him to say, an ogre, get your knives and pitch, really tall. Doesn't that bother you? Nope. Really? Mm-hmm. When I first saw you, I didn't think that you were just a big, dumb, stupid, ugly ogre. people take one look at me. I related hardcore to that, and
Yeah.
when I pointed that out to my online friends, they were like, "Huh, I never saw it that way." I also related to Lilo from Lilo and Stitch, about my friends, and
Interesting.
always
That's
feeling like an outcast.
yeah. That's it. That was a good example. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, that was a good question, Kat.
And if anything, if I have any like PS thoughts about this where I think like, oh, that could have come across wrong, I'll probably this will be on YouTube, right? I can put it in the comments and be like, hey, I think I construed this wrong and want to clarify.
Yes. Yeah. If you do that, I'll make sure I pin it so it stays at the top.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, for sure. For sure. All right, cool, Katie. Well, I am going to, or do you mind just muting yourself? Guys, we're going to pray and get out of here. I'm a little bit late now. So let me see real quick. Anybody who doesn't know, there is a prayer section in the Discord. I think everybody here does. Maybe Rumbly Tumbly, you might not know. We have a prayer section in the Discord. There again is a link to get into Discord. You can submit a prayer request that is either public or private. Private stays within the prayer team and me. Public goes into a separate category that I am free to read on stream. So we only have one right now. So we've got this. Dear sisters and brothers, our brother Jared Mills, who has been around for a long time, is requesting prayer for his grandfather who is currently in the hospital due to a stroke. So we ask for God's divine healing for his grandpa and also prayers for comfort and peace for his whole family. God, beyond that, we want to pray specifically tonight for culture. Culture is something I pray about probably more than anything else, something I talk about more than anything else. And the reason is just because of how prevalent and confused culture seems to be at the moment, regardless of how we feel personally about the LGBTQ movement or any other, outside political or cultural movements that seem to be much larger than in reality they actually are due to the conflation of social media and the internet. We just want to pray for, like Katie was kind of talking about, that people just respect and love each other first, especially if something isn't directly causing harm to other people. Within a scriptural standpoint, we call that non-essential. These are non-essential things. Even once we get to the essential things, though, I pray that people try to approach them in an intelligent way, in a way that you could maybe reach somebody or maybe actually get through to somebody, because these highly hot and highly directed comments that we at least see online predominantly, but definitely happen in person too, these things don't help anybody. Going at people instead of to people does not help anybody. And all it does is cause a greater divide and a greater chasm between the two different groups of people. So I pray at least this group specifically really attempts to engage with these issues, whether we're online or whether we're in person, in a manner of humility. Because as we kind of talked about, nobody is free from doing things we should not be doing. Nobody is free from the concept of sin. It really, if we're being honest, comes down to what sin do you do? And this odd self-righteousness where we feel like our sin is not as bad as the guy or woman next to us, and therefore we sit on the high horse. All sin, for the most part, is basically the same. I pray that people within our group really grasp that and live in a state of humility of that, so that when we speak to other people or we pastor or teach with other people, we see them as equals in that regard, because that is the reality. I also pray for everybody in the group who might be having a hard time. We've had a lot of private prayers come in, so be with them for all the different reasons that they were requesting people to pray for them. I pray that we continue to get new people in here like we have been, because all of them seem to be awesome, and it's growing the community, and it's going to get better conversation and allow us to go deeper, because we'll have those different perspectives. We pray all of this in Jesus' name. Amen. Everybody have a lovely evening. I'm going to go play with my kid for 30 minutes before bed and eat, because I'm always hungry. Everybody have a great night. I will post a poll for next Thursday's topic. Last week we didn't do one because I decided we were just going to do the part 2 of this because Katie had waited so long, and it's a good conversation. It's prevalent, it matters. But this week we'll go back to normal. So again, that's going to be too loud. So if you get in the Discord, you'll see a poll in the announcements tab, which is near the top of the channel list. I will also alert everybody of that. So make sure you click alerts on when you join the Discord. But you'll have probably 5 to 7 choices of what the topic will be. You guys vote, and then that is what we talk about every Thursday. Remember, too, Sunday nights, 6 p.m. We're going to continue going through Enoch, which has been phenomenal and crazy and hard to follow, but very good. So if you're interested in joining the Bible study, that's 6 p.m. Central Time, so same time as this tonight, but on Sunday. Every Sunday, every Thursday, we meet here and we do these things. So I love y'all guys. Testimonies are testimonies needed for growing your faith. I am going to copy it and I will put it in the poll. Thanks, Jalen. It's a good question. It's a good question. Danny, you got to tell me if your boy ever says anything about what I sent out. You got to let me know. And I'll let you know if he sends something back. All right. I love you guys. Everybody have a